This is the Planet Reigate podcast.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the show. This is Peter Stewart and welcome Planeteers to the show exclusively, uniquely and proudly about the hills, the high streets and the heaths of Reigate, Redhill and Merstham, Buckland, Betchworth and Brockham. Episode 36 then, Saturday the 18th of May. And amongst our guests this week, the story of the local windmill that was saved from demolition. I've been inside the windmill at Charlwood with Pete James to hear about its fascinating history, and I share that with you a little bit later on in the show. Looking ahead to the big local carnival, Mike George is with us later to tell us what is on and when, and looking back at the last season with players from Reigate Priory Football Club, their scorelines, their successes and their star players as well. In the news this week, arrests in Redhill, meetings about Surrey Fire and Rescue Service changes, and a meeting between police and residents about poor parking on Ray Park Road. Your ideas are wanted for the future of the Surrey Hills. A refurbished children's unit has been opened at the hospital. Radio 4 is going to broadcast a show live from Salfords. Volunteers are wanted for a community garden locally, magical and mythical creatures at Reigate Library, cheap art, singing and creative writing courses locally, the location of lots of local food trucks over the next few weeks, why a car boot fair has been cancelled, and an unusual disappearance from Povey Cross as well. And we have the Good Time Guide of events across the area over the next 7 days. I give you the local roadworks heads up so you can avoid the hold-ups. And I'll tell you the cheapest local petrol in the area as well. Planet Reigate Stars are from Russ Hill. We have some treasure from the Children's Trust. And our 60-second soundscape before we go at the end of the show is from Reigate.
This is the Planet Reigate podcast with Peter Stewart.
All sorts of stuff going on between now and the end of the show, and don't forget to subscribe to the show in your favourite podcast app. Why? Well, because that means that you don't miss an episode. And of course, with the timeline time codes in the show notes every single week, you're able to just skip forward to the bit of the show that you want to listen to, a particular feature, a particular interview, a particular day of the Good Time Guide, all of those kinds of things. Hopefully you'll start at the beginning and you'll listen all the way through to the end, but I understand with a veritable buffet of great material in the show. There's all sorts of stuff that you can listen to, and some of it you may just prefer to listen to than others. Welcome to the Planet Reigate podcast and the Planet Reigate postbag this week. Horley Business Guild said, check out last week's Planet Reigate podcast, gave us a mention, episode 35. They say if you live, work or relax in Reigate, Redhill, Buckland, Betchworth or Brockham, we would highly recommend giving their page a follow and indulge in their weekly podcasts to keep updated and connected to your hometown and local area. We like that. You're going to indulge in listening to the Planet Reigate podcast. Thank you guys. Hope to see you in the week. Yeah, we mentioned them last week because they've got a special event which is happening this coming week, haven't they? Down at Serendipity in Horley. So if you are part of a local business, maybe you run local business, something like that, and you want to meet with other people, then you need to be at Serendipity on Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock. And there you can rub shoulders with other people who are doing similar things, maybe in slightly different businesses. And as we've said before, the whole idea, of course, is to swap ideas and maybe swap some clients as well, because it stands to reason, doesn't it? If you're an estate agent, for example, then you may be able to recommend people who can help people who've just bought a property from you with a home decorating service or a locksmith service or a garden maintenance service, that kind of thing. That's how it all works, isn't it? That kind of networking. Robin wrote to me, hi Peter, I met you at the Business Guild, the Redhill Business Guild. Of course you did, Robin, when you came along. I've been listening to your podcast since you came. I love the features on local history. It does have to be said that I can see the stats behind the scenes, and the shows which feature local history really have a huge amount of engagement. People really do seem to love those shows. What have we done? We've done about Donata School, haven't we? Done about Carrington, Richard Carrington, who was the the astronomer over in Red Hill. We've done about the deaths in Betchworth in the churchyard. We did the 4 weddings and a funeral one as well. We've done several others too, and more in the pipeline too. And Robin says, thank you so much for taking the time. Absolutely fascinating. And he said, I love the dawn chorus. I was also out early that morning. Yeah, this is a really fun story that Robin says. He says, I sometimes take my guitar onto the hills to sing, and it was so beautiful. I drove up to Marjorie Woods and stood on Collie Hill singing for the joy of being alive at dawn. That sounds tremendous, doesn't it? Heading home, there was the same car in the car park that had been there when I arrived, with the engine running. 3 young men inside, smoking out of the windows. Aye, what would you do in that situation? It's early in the morning. There's a car in a car park, otherwise empty car park. 3 young fellas in this... okay. I think I might feel a little bit nervous, to be quite honest. I think I might do a kind of circuitous route around the car park and jump into mine and hop, skip and jump out of there. Anyway, Robin takes up the story. He says, by then I'd walked back through the woods as the sun pierced the spring leaves to beam on the bluebells, and I think I was slightly intoxicated with the wonder of the morning. So I wandered over and I asked the lads if they'd like a song. They were a bit bemused, but agreed. So I sang one, telling them, feel the wonder of the world 'cause you're alive. And at the end they said to me, that's quality, bruv. Which is perhaps the nicest thing that's been said about my singing for a while. But I drove away thinking we were all probably asking ourselves, did that really just happen? Hilarious. Anyway, I thought you would enjoy the story. Keep up the good work. Robin, I love that story, and it just goes to show it's that whole thing, isn't it, about never judge a book by its cover. And I remember I recounted this story a few weeks ago on the show when I was up recording on the top of Reigate Hill, and it was cold. It was several months ago. It was cold, but I was on the top of Reigate Hill in the car park there at Junction 8, and I was recording a piece, and I had the window down, so I could still have the sound of the wind in the trees and the birds and so on, and people moving around. But also, I was a little bit warm as well, and also it meant there wasn't going to be too much wind on the microphone. And a young lad, and I would guess his girlfriend, could be a family member, could be a sister, whatever, in the car alongside. And they said, after a while, they were listening to me, and they, what are you doing? So I told them about the podcast, and they said, we're really enjoying listening to your recording about Kevin Keegan. Don't know who Kevin Keegan was, but it's really interesting. We never knew that happened up here. So it just goes to show, doesn't it, that when you see young people around, I've said this before as well on the show, you see young people hanging around on street corners and you may be a little bit intimidated, but actually they're just having a chat. They're dropping stories. They're saying what happened at school. They're saying what they want to do when they grow up. They're saying perhaps who they fancy, that kind of thing. There you go. Robin said, I feel the wonder of the world 'cause you're alive. And at the end I was told, that's quality, bruv. I love that. Also in this part of the show, I'd like to wish a very warm welcome to 2 great supporters of the Planet Reigate podcast. It's the Belfry Shopping Centre in Red Hill and Woodlands Lettings, also in Red Hill. Now, you're going to hear messages from them later on in the show, and I hope you'll give your support to them in a similar way that they have given their support to the Planet Reigate podcast. And if you'd like to become a supporter of the show as well in a similar way and have your message available to the thousands of people within the Planet Reigate area, you can drop me a line. hello@theplanetreigatepodcast.com. So maybe that you run a shop or a business, you may be an independent trader, and even though we mention 40, 50 events a week sometimes for free, if you want added exposure, more mentions, cross-platform support and coverage in the several weeks leading up to your event, show, talk, exhibition, fair, sale, holiday club, whatever it happens to be, then we can talk about that as well. hello@theplanetreigatepodcast.com. This is Peter Stewart. We have all sorts of events coming up in the first part of our Good Time Guide for this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, right across the Planet Reigate area. Here we go!
The Good Time Guide. Things to do and places to go on the Planet Reigate podcast.
Yeah, please remember to subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. You can do that via your favourite podcast app. And on Saturday the 18th, there's a spring fair, all jumble. You can fill a bag. They provide the bag. You give them £5 and you can shove as much stuff in as you possibly can. There's handbags and jewellery and cakes and plants and bric-a-brac. Saturday, 10:30 to 12:30 at Redhill Methodist Church on Gloucester Road. Go along and have a good rummage. Also happening this weekend, Time a Season. It's an art festival happening at St Matthew's Church in Redhill between 9 in the morning through till 8 at night. Coffee, collage and cross-stitch. And other words, presumably, beginning with cake. With C. Cake. I've got cake on the mind. They didn't mention cake. Coffee. Tea, coffee and cake. How about that? Talks and music between 10 and 2. As I say, it's early in the morning till late at night. Well, between 9 and 8. That is early and late, isn't it, for a weekend? So there you go. It's all happening, as I say, at St Matthew's Church in Redhill. St Joseph's Preschool have a spring fair, 122 Labrook Road in Redhill, between 11 and 2. £1 per family. Bletchfest's third annual Artists and Artisans exhibition across the weekend, where leisure artists exhibit alongside established professionals. Unique original artwork. They're going to be featuring the art of wood turning as well. Arts and crafts in a range of different media, all available to buy. Free entry, live music, refreshments, free parking. All sorts of stuff is going on. And that's at the Pavilion at Grange Meadow in Bletchingley. So that sounds pretty good, doesn't it? All sorts of things going on there across the weekend. Plus, the Reigate and Redhill Music and Drama Festival is happening. And we're pleased to announce that we are media partners with the Reigate and Redhill Music and Drama Festival. And this weekend, classical guitar on Saturday between 9 and 6 at the United Reformed Church at Shaw's Corner, and the harp and the Scottish Celtic Carp happening at the same time at Reigate Park Church. Brockham Arts Club have a children's workshop, Neon Sunset. Yeah, it's a pizza and paint night on Saturday between 6 and 8 for £20. Horley Cook-along between 11 and 1 on Saturday at the Baptist Church there on Court Lodge Road. They say no cooker, no problem. Join us in preparing and sharing safety, nutritious and affordable food. There'll be demos with microwaves, air fryers, slow cookers, cold cooking and kettle cooking as well. Taste samples, recipe ideas will be available, and also there's a chance for you to win a slow cooker as well. From Saturday to Sunday, the Reigate and Redhill Music and Drama Festival, of which we are media partners, have a Bark to Baby concert between 3 and 4:30 on Sunday at the United Reformed Church at Shaw's Corner as well. Don't forget, if you want something mentioned on the Good Time Guide, a mention for your charity or maybe non-profit event, let us know about it. You can fill out the form you'll find at theplanetreigatepodcast.com. And part 2 of the Good Time Guide continues a little bit later on in the show when we tell you what's happening Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and next Saturday as well across the Planet Reigate area.
Planet Reigate is the indoor pool at Donnings and the water sports lake at Mercer's. And this is the Planet Reigate podcast.
And there's so much more still to come in this week's episode of the Planet Reigate podcast, and so much more, of course, in all of our archive shows as well. For example, Yvonne from Little Kickers was our guest in episode 23. Now, that's a group for boys and girls aged 18 months to 8 years who want to learn sport through play, and it's more than just balls and goals. Coaching integrates other developmental skills such as colours and counting and following instructions and teamwork and things like that. And also in the same show, episode 23, a little bit of local history, Robin will be pleased, we explained why Donnings is called Donnings. Find those episodes on our page on your favourite podcast app, or also you'll be able to find a link to all of our shows if you go to the Planet Reigate's podcast.com, and if you scroll down on that very first page, there's a link to where you can find all of our archived episodes. And before we go, at the end of the show, a natural sound from a place you know, our 60-second Soundscape. This week we join a local running group as they start off pounding the mean streets of Reigate. And a little bit later on in this show, we've got travel and weather together on the Planet Reigate podcast, and also from Julie Beams, who helps run the shop, the Children's Trust shop, Bell Street in Reigate. We've got special featuring this week, a teapot and a jug. So that sounds intriguing. Why is a teapot and a jug so intriguing and interesting that it's being highlighted as one of our hidden treasure items this week? You'll find out later on in the show that goes by the name of the Planet Reigate podcast. I'm Peter Stewart.
The Planet Reigate podcast. Great stories from Charlwood.
Quick quiz question for you. How many windmills in the Planet Reigate area? Let's count them off. I reckon 4. Reigate Heath, Ray Common, Outwood and Charlwood. And now another question. If you wanted to move a windmill, how would you do it? I've been to the Charlwood windmill to find out just that from Pete James.
I've been involved with the windmill 40 years this year, and my initial work measuring up and drawing the plans for the windmill in preparation for actually its move. The owners of the site, as it was in Lowfield Heath, were an investment fund, and they didn't want to finance any repair to it. So the last resort was basically we decided we had to actually move it. And we were keen to actually move it within the original old parish of Charlwood, which Lowfield Heath was in, and then looked for a site.
We are in a wonderful meadow of long grasses and tall buttercups.
It looks, as you say, absolutely quite wonderful.
And describe the windmill to us.
An 18th century mill dating from about 1737. The builders of the mill at Lowfield Heath were the Constables, but they happened to own a mill on Horsham Common since 1620. So we believe that mill probably, and about the right timescale, came to the end of its life in the 1730s and was taken down, and maybe parts of it were brought to Lowfield Heath, because certainly within the mill you can identify various timbers which came from an earlier mill. You know, why would you chop new trees down when you can reuse some of the timbers from previous mills? Now, they're called post mills because the entire operating structure sat on one enormous oak post. So you could actually move the entire structure, which housed the sails and all the machinery. You can move that round so the sails face the wind. And if the wind changed, the miller would have to run out the mill all the way down the ladder to the ground and then hitch up the steps. And then by the use of what's called a tail pole coming out of the mill from the back, he would then push the entire building round until the sails face the wind again.
Fascinating, and we can see that. Shall we go into the main grounds of the mill?
The state of the mill was such, if we hadn't have done something, it would have fallen down in no time at all. So we decided the only way to salvage it was to dismantle the entire mill and move it the 3 miles to Charlwood. We took it all down by September 1987, and we all know what happened in October. Had we not taken it down, the wind would have taken it down for us, I believe.
Yeah, with the hurricane then.
This is called the roundhouse where we're standing at the moment, which is the lower sort of brick portion, and this was basically to store the finished product. Where we're standing at the moment, we can look up and see the underneath of the mill, and you can actually see the main post rising up through the floor and supported on 4 other timbers.
And this is good old Surrey oak, is it?
Absolutely, yeah, solid oak. The cart would arrive outside, the grain would be unloaded and moved into the roundhouse, Actually, if we look directly above us, we can see a hatch.
Kind of trap door, yeah.
A hatch, trap door. Now that's actually called the sack trap. And down from there would be a chain would come down, and you would fasten the chain around the top of the sack, and then actually under wind power, you would haul the sack up through the mill, and then up to another sack trap onto the top floor where all the bins are. And then you empty the grain in the bins. You would then release a certain amount of grain down into the hopper above the millstones. The grain would feed down into the eye or the centre of the stone and then work its way between the two stones where it's actually ground and then come out as flour on the periphery. And so it would have been bagged on the floor above, on the spout floor. And then once all the bags are ready upstairs, again, it will come down the sack hoist to the floor below by wind power.
And the stones are still up there, are they, or not?
Well, it's an interesting tale about the stones. A set of stones is two stones. You've got the bed stone, as it's called, which is stationary, and then you've got the runner stone, which rotates and is driven by the mill. When we arrived, there was only the bed stones in situ, and one of them was broken in half. A mill down in Sussex, Winchelsea Mill, got blown over in the hurricane. That was another post mill. And the stones from there were actually salvaged and brought to West Blackington Mill down in Sussex. And from there, we actually purchased those stones. And those stones are what's called French burr stones, which are made out of individual blocks, probably 30 or 40 of them. So they're actually a puzzle you buy, and then you fit them all together with plaster of Paris, and then you put the iron hoops around the end to form your complete millstone. So we managed to build a couple from those fragments, but one of the other stones was actually what's called a millstone grit material from Derbyshire, and that was a monolithic or one-piece stone. And of course, we didn't have that. But then one of our members at the time, Frank Gregory, he did a bit of research, and he found out that after the mill finished working in the 1880s, the people who were renting it at the time, called the Robinsons, took their millstones down to their house at Iford in Lewes. Now, Frank actually did a bit of research and then discovered the house where the millstones were and actually found our millstone. It turned out the house was actually owned by Kenneth Baker, who used to be the Mole Valley MP. Anyway, very kindly agreed for us to have it if we could actually maybe give him a substitute one. We then got given some from Blackburn Mill, and one of them we used to swap to get our stone back. So after about 120 years of being away from the mill, this stone came back to its resting place where it was back in 1880, which is quite a remarkable story.
Well, not least because they're pretty damn heavy.
Well, yes, it was quite an escapade to actually move, as you can imagine.
Let alone then get it up into the ceiling here in the mill.
That's right. So we employed the millwrights to help us with all that move.
We've kind of touched briefly on the story that the mill was moved, but how was it moved? You were taking it apart brick by brick, or were they coming down in sections? I mean, presumably some of the sails and so on you could take down almost completely.
So there's two parts to it. We've got the brick roundhouse I described earlier, and we've got the mill as such. No sails at that stage, they had long since disappeared. But
so the sails are replicas, they're more modern, are they?
Absolutely, yeah. That's right.
Why would they have disappeared? They would have just fallen into disrepair, would they? Yeah,
they just rotted. So to actually dismantle the mill, a bit awkward because, as I said earlier, the entire building sat on one post. So you clearly can't take half of it off because then it'll just move the other way and probably fall over. So we had to find some millwrights. And the first thing to do, because of the fact that, say, the mill is supported on one post, was to underpin it with a frame which would support the whole mill whilst you remove large sections of it. And then the front was removed in one section, each of the sides an individual section. The roof was taken off, the wind shaft, the big heavy cast iron piece. So we ended up with about 10 different sections. And because they then needed restoring, we were given the use, luckily, of a barn, Edolph's Copse. And then the millwrights actually went through every single section, chopped out old pieces of wood, inserted new bits, and then we ended up with the parlour sections, which were all now fully restored. All the volunteers were busy dismantling the roundhouse, literally brick by brick, as you said earlier, Peter. In the end, we ended up with 10,000 individual bricks, Whilst all the repair work was going on at the mill, we employed another company, Capsticks of Charlwood, to actually rebuild the roundhouse. So it took quite a few months to actually rebuild the mill in its entirety. By 1990, we had a sort of grand opening, and we were lucky to get Princess Alexandra to come down on the day. It's essentially a complete windmill, and there's not many complete post mills in the country. There's a few capable of grinding. In fact, the oldest working windmill, which is a post mill in England, is actually at nearby Outwood.
And people can come, can't they, to come inside the windmill, have a look round, have picnics and hold various events here as well. It is open to the public.
We've got a number of open days. Now, usually we open last Sundays in the month from the end of May to the end of August. And then in September, we open the Heritage Open Days. We're now open both those weekends, and all our open days are from 2 to 5 in the afternoon. It's a lovely place just to bring the family. You can picnic in the grounds. We've got homemade cakes and tea on offer, and I have to say the cakes are fantastic. We've even got toilet facilities on site, so a brilliant place to come.
And more details on the website.
Just look up Lowfield Heath Windmill. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. And the other thing which we're very keen to promote, we had a large walking group who came along and they had their lunch here basically, and part of that guided tours, obviously for a fee. Bearing in mind we're a trust and we've got to restore this. A car club came down with a variety of vintage cars, and they actually parked some of them around the windmill, so it was a marvellous sight. It was a lunch stop for them. Again, they had guided tours around the mill, so that worked well. We've had a few art groups. They've set up their easels at the front, and which they've had a great time. And obviously afterwards, we've seen the results of their hard work.
It's really photogenic, isn't it?
It certainly is. And of course, the grounds are open free all year round, so anyone can come round and take a photo. Talking of which, did anyone take a photo of the mill with the Aurora Borealis in the background? If they did, please send them in to us. We'd be delighted to see them.
So if you've got a club or a society or some other group, you can come here, have an organised tour, you can have picnic in the grounds, you can make a day of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, obviously there's a fee involved, but we're not talking about a huge fee, and we're rather trying to promote this as a way of actually earning income for the upkeep of the mill. Contact us, arrange a private day, and more often than not we can have the cakes and the tea for your day as well.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much indeed for showing me around. Does she have a name? Do you refer to her by a kind of pet name, or is it the Lowfield Heath Windmill at Charlwood?
No, we don't really, other than it's clearly a she.
Yes, I said that automatically, didn't I? I wonder why.
You did.
Why? Because she's doing all the work. That's what it is.
Yeah, clearly, yes, that's right.
Planet Reigate podcast, and it was great to meet up with Pete down there at the windmill. Have a little look inside. It's quite a sight, and as we were saying there, it's a great place to go, perhaps at sunset, early in the morning, if you're running past, if you've got a phone on you or a camera or something. You can go along, take some terrific photographs. Little bit difficult doing the recording there because it's right near the Gatwick flypast, but I reckon the number of times you've flown into Gatwick or flown out, have a look out the window and see whether you can see the Lowfield Heath Windmill at Charlwood. And of course, go to their website, look out for some more opportunities for you to get up close, to get inside as well and sample something. I'm a bit disappointed that Pete didn't bring cake with him on the day that we met him. That was a bit of a shame. Still to come. Oh, by the way, it was a bit tricky to get to the windmill. It really was, because I was actually going from Horley, where I've been interviewing Mike for one of our other guest interviews this week. Mike, who is one of the organisers of the Horley Carnival. So I'll be telling you about the Horley Carnival a little bit later on. And I was going from Horley to the windmill at Charlwood, which is just beyond Charlwood Village, on Russ Hill Road. It was very difficult to get to. I had to do what I think was a 7-mile round journey to approach the windmill, which is actually, I don't know if you know that neck of the woods, it's between Charlwood Village and the Russ Hill Hotel. So I had to go all the way round. and then back in the other way, down to Rusper. Had to go into another county, which was difficult. I obviously had to make sure that I was well aware of any fire-breathing dragons. And then approach the windmill from past the Russ Hill Hotel. It was a bit tricky. We got travel and weather together to come, and including a few other road closures in that neck of the woods. And also a bit later on in the show, Reigate Priory Football Club. I've met up with Jack down there and also Dale as well. Hear what they've got to say from their perspective of talking to me in May about the previous season. This is the Planet Reigate podcast. I'm Peter Stewart. All sorts of interesting stuff to come in our news bulletin. So let's get that underway right here, right now on the Planet Reigate podcast. And we'll start off with news that local police say they've made 56 arrests, 21 people have been charged, 200 plus searches, 26 drug seizures, including 10 kilograms of suspected cocaine, recovery of cash and knives as well. Just what they call a snapshot of the targeted police activity in Red Hill over the past few months. They say it comes as part of a joint initiative with local partners designed to reduce crime in the town centre for the long term. Inspector John Vale is the borough commander, and he put this out on social media during the course of the past few days.
We're here at Red Hill train station conducting a drugs operation with drugs dogs, and we've also got officers in the town centre, Memorial Park and on the Cromwell estate as well. As part of an initiative called Safer Red Hill, we're working with numerous partners across the borough and further afield. This is part of a long-term project. I've responded to concerns that the community have raised around Red Hill, and you will continue to see us presence within the town centre as we move forward over the next few months. If you see us in the town centre, please stop us and come and say hello.
From police to fire, Surrey Fire and Rescue asking people for their feedback on those changes that they've got planned, which will form part of the Community Risk Management Plan going through to 2025 and all the way up to 2030 as well. I mentioned this on the show last week. Now, the plan sets out changes that Surrey Fire and Rescue would like to make to keep people safe and what they say, ensure an efficient and effective service for communities. They're draft proposals at the moment. They've outlined half a dozen or so changes. So what they want is people who live, work in, travel through or visit Surrey to have their say. And those proposals, if approved, would result in no change to Surrey Fire and Rescue Service budget. But they say if you want to know some more actually about what they plan to do, they've got some online sessions that you can join up. 4th of June at 6 p.m, 3rd of July at 6 p.m. They're going to be hosted on Microsoft Teams Live. But you've got to sign up to be able to get that link. If you want some details about how you can get that link, drop me a line and I'll pass those details on to you.
Email hello@theplanetregatepodcast.com.
And also there's a live Q&A as well, which is happening at the YMCA, Albert Road in Horley, appropriately enough, at the old fire station there. That's on the 18th of June between 10 and 2. It's a kind of drop-in, and you can go along there and ask them what their plans are and ask them any more questions. So what have we done? We've done police, we've done fire, so let's put them both together and talk about police and fire together in the same story. Because as you know, Surrey Fire and Rescue are based at Ray Park, and as you also know, because you listen to it on the show, Reigate Police Station closed down because of the dodgy concrete rack. They moved a lot of their staff over to Ray Park, didn't they? And this week there's been a residents' meeting for people on Ray Park Road. Brooklands School, Brightlands Road and so on, that whole neck of the woods, affected by issues since the police moved into the fire station area. And there are claims that an extra 90 cars blocking residents in and affecting Brooklands School. Obviously, as you can imagine, that's going to be quite big, isn't it? If 90 more cars are being parked on the roads outside. And you may be scratching your head thinking, well, hold on, why didn't the police think about this, about where their staff are going to be parked? So I thought that's a very good point. Let's actually go to Surrey Police and ask them what the background to all this is. Well, needless to say, things get a little bit clearer when you hear their side of the story. And anyway, this is what they said. They actually sent me quite a lengthy statement back, but let's summarise the statement from Chief Superintendent Graham Barnett, who's the divisional commander for Reigate and Banstead. He says the staff had to move from Reigate Police Station unexpectedly because of the rack concrete that I just mentioned, and they weighed up the duration of a lease they could get somewhere else, the cost of any rental of going somewhere else, the parking arrangements, as you might expect, response times to be able to get to other places in Reigate, Redhill, Merstham, Banstead, down to Horley and so on, the cost of any alterations they'd have to make, and Ray Park was unanimously the best option for the force, and they're likely to be there for the next 18, 24 months. Unlikely to be there any further because, again, as you've heard on the Planet Reigate podcast over the last couple of weeks, Surrey Fire and Rescue have got their own plans for the redevelopment of that site because they want to put in a new training facility there. So he says there's a temporary car park at Ray Park, but because of the wet weather, it's partly unusable. But work is going on which will relieve some, but not all of the pressure on the surrounding roads. And he says there are around 90 on-site parking spaces for operational vehicles and also people's own personal vehicles when they commute into work there. And he said so that will be all of the operational fleet would take up those 90 spaces, and around half of personal vehicles. And the divisional commander says, quote, "I'm confident that the on-site parking will be fully utilised once those repairs are completed in the next 3-4 weeks, something like that." And he says, quote, "It's important to note there are no parking restrictions in nearby roads." So this is me talking now. So essentially what he's saying there is they are allowed to park on nearby roads. They're not breaking any rules, nothing about residence permits or yellow lines or something. Staff are allowed to park on nearby roads. Back to what he says, some of the parking is inconsiderate though. And while it's not possible to confirm that these are police employees, we do hear residents' concerns. Quote, "We've also provided information and contacts to support local residents in applying for parking restrictions on their road, and that process is owned by Surrey County Council." So essentially what he's saying there is, we hope to be moving all of our staff, or most of them anyway, onto the main site and not local roads in the next 3, 4, maybe 5 weeks. But if you do want to have more restrictions on your roads, like yellow lines or parking permits for residents, then you can apply to Surrey County Council to have that done, or at least considered, and this is how you do it. Okay? Now, the police also say they did try and find other nearby parking sites when they realised this potentially could be an issue, but none were found. And that they are committed to ensuring that we reduce the disruption to local residents as much as possible, and we really intend to be good neighbours. He says, quote, "I have committed to working with residents and will continue to keep them updated." Well, I don't know about you, but that sounds all pretty reasonable to me. I can understand the residents' point of view that, all of another 90 cars on your road is going to cause a problem, but the end is in sight, and it does seem to be that there is communication going on and an explanation, because very often you just need to know the thinking behind it, because it's very easy to think, and I'm not saying the residents thought this or said this, but it's very easy to think, why didn't they consider that this could be a problem? Well, they did, and they did try and mitigate against it, but unfortunately, you know how things happen. This is not a perfect situation for anybody, but they are saying, work with us, bear with us, the end is in sight, we understand your frustrations and your pain and so on, and we are trying to help you. And what I thought was really, really interesting is that residents' meeting was called, as I say, in the week, and the police actually went along to it. Chief Superintendent Graham Barnett, Divisional Commander, actually went along to it and actually explained what the situation was. So I thought you'd like an update. There you go. Now, what do you think the Surrey Hills should be like at the end of the century? Boy, oh boy, that's a way off, but it's worth thinking about, isn't it? So whether you're maybe a bird watcher, a hiker, horse rider, cyclist, or you just love the scenic views, national landscapes are at the heart of creating a thriving place for nature and people. And the Surrey Hills Board wants your thoughts on what the Surrey Hills could be like 75 years from now. So it's things like what the landscape could look like, what animals and plants may be there, how you might access the Surrey Hills in the future, and also looking after the cultural and historic environment, and maybe about the integration with tech and arts as well. All sorts of things. They want your views, kind of to write a postcard. And essentially what they're saying is they're just a couple of short sentences thereafter, not some long list of things, not an essay or anything like that. Do you want to be involved? If you do, it's long, it's complicated, it's a web link. Get in touch with me. I'll pass those details on.
Email hello@theplanetregatepodcast.com.
A refurbed Children's Day Procedures Unit has been opened at the hospital. It's after a Red Hill company called Skin Sense donated £12,000 towards the unit, which cares for young patients having day surgery and elective procedures. It's now got a dedicated area for paediatrics as well, so it's much more welcoming, vibrant and child-friendly. The May full meeting of Charlwood Parish Council taking place on Monday in the Pavilion at Charlwood at 7:30, and you're encouraged to go along. Yeah, members of the public are invited to attend in person. You can book questions to the councillors, and if you want to do that, they need to know what the questions are in advance, so you've got to contact the clerk at clark@charlwoodparishcouncil.gov.uk. From one council to another, and Salfords and Sidlow Parish Council say they're going to be hosting the BBC Radio 4 Any Questions programme. It goes out on Friday nights, goes out live, doesn't it, on Radio 4, as part of their 50th birthday celebrations. That's the 50th birthday celebrations of Salfords and Sidlow Parish Council, not the 50th birthday celebrations of Any Questions. Anyway, they say... contact me in the week and said they put the application in last year, and now they've actually been chosen, so it's a great opportunity to showcase Salfords and also the wonderful village hall as well. Now it's going to be on Friday the 14th of June, so just under a month away. The show airs at 8 p.m. on a Friday night. Doors open at 6:30, they close at 7:15. Questions have got to be registered and people have got to be whipped up into a formal frenzy and so on. That they've got to make sure that people who going to be asking the questions are in the right place and everyone knows what's going to happen, and the panel's going to be introduced. Oh, by the way, they don't know who's going to be on the panel at the moment, but it's going to be a really good opportunity. But what they usually do on that panel for Any Questions is pick at least one person who has something to do with the local community. So it could be a local MP, it could be a local councillor, it could be someone to do with, it could be someone from the North Downs or the Surrey Hills, for example, giving their perspective on the stories in the news. It's a ticketed event. Those tickets are free and they are going to be available very soon. So look out on social media to Salfords and Sidlow Parish Council if you'd be interested in going along to that. Loveworks, which is the food collections and donations charity, are going to be having a street collection outside Morrison's in Reigate on Tuesday. And they say please come along and donate to your local food bank. They're after tins of corned beef or ham or spam, fruit and veg, custard, rice pudding, potatoes and tomatoes, things like that. So it's Tuesday outside Morrison's in Reigate, 9:30 to 4:30. And they say also donations can always be made in Reigate at the community centre. That's the one behind Marks and Spencer's. Or you can go to loveworks.org.uk to find out other places that they will accept your donations as well. There's a whole list of donation locations, which is a nice line, isn't it? Oh, and by the way, there is a change in their warehouse opening times. They're no longer going to be opening on Mondays. However, they will be open to receive your food donations Tuesdays to Saturday, 10 till 12. That's over at Red Hill, isn't it? The Holmthorpe Avenue, that business park there. Unit 4. I went over there a couple of weeks ago, and you'll hear more about my tour around Loveworks in a couple of weeks' time on the Planet Reigate podcast. Surrey Care Trust's Gateway Community Allotment say they're currently looking for volunteers to come and help them at their community gardens. So if you like being outdoors and have a few hours a week to spare, why not get in touch? So get in touch with them at surreycaretrust.org.uk. That's the site just opposite Earlswood Lakes, isn't it? Just down there. So if that's easy for you to get to, and you've got a spade or a trowel or a fork or something like that, if you can push a wheelbarrow, or you know one end of a carrot from another. Why don't you get in touch with them because they're looking for volunteers for their community garden, so get in touch with them. Something we mentioned last week, and it's happening tomorrow, Saturday. Didn't put it in the good time guide for obvious reasons. It's the Nutfield Cemetery and Woodland Burial. They've got an open day, or at least an open morning, on Saturday the 18th between 10 and 1. So you can go along, have a little nose around, ask questions. It may be something that you could be interested in spending, your forever time, let's put it that way, there at Nutfield, or maybe someone else who's of a certain age or situation and they're looking for somewhere to spend their forever time. You can go along there. It's Nutfield Cemetery, Woodland Burial, Saturday between 10 and 1. It's just up the hill, isn't it, as you come out of Red Hill on the way to Bletchingley, left-hand side, a little lay-by there. And if you want to know more about it, you can phone the parish clerk, 07722 465 344, and or listen to last week's episode of the show when we had a little tour around there in anticipation of one of their open mornings. The Red Lion in Red Hill says, unfortunately, due to tragic circumstances, our Thai kitchen has had to close for 3 weeks while the family returns to Thailand. That's very sad news, isn't it? The kitchen is closed. However, we are working closely with the Lotus House Chinese to continue to provide authentic Oriental cuisine. Place your order from the Red Lion and it'll be delivered for payment, and we'll provide the rest. Following its successful run last year, there's a fantastical exhibition returning to Surrey Libraries. Fantasy Realms of Imagination explores the origins of fantasy and how it's flourishing today. Quote, for centuries, readers have escaped their everyday lives and journeyed into new worlds filled with magic and adventure, incredible mythical creatures and heroes and villains that speak to our greatest dreams and fears. From ancient folk tales and fairy stories, gothic horror and weird fiction, to live-action role-playing games. Yeah, I know a few young people who love playing those live-action role-playing games. Fantasy Realms of Imagination is going to be at Reigate Library through until the 5th of June. And I've looked online and I've seen some of the pictures and some of the information there. It looks really fantastic in both senses of the word. So if your kids or you are into heroes and villains and folk tales, gothic horror, weird fiction, video games and so on, Reigate Library through until the 5th of June. Growing Health Through Art and Creativity is the name of a new programme being run by Reigate and Banstead Borough Council. It's called Art for Wellbeing, and the aim is to use art and creativity to boost people's physical and mental health. So it's things like music, creative writing, photography, dance is in there as well, because all of that kind of helps your mobility and breathing, your mood and your confidence. So altogether, as I say, puts together physical and mental well-being. And they've tried to keep these prices really, really low, so no one is discounted. Well, the sessions are discounted, but you won't be. £3 a session, and it's things like, well, there's art for well-being. On Mondays, you'll be guided through a number of art techniques, no experience necessary. Classes are going to be inclusive and friendly. There's creative writing sessions with Nikki Mackay. Nikki's been a guest on the programme as well, hasn't she? So you'll be able to have fun with words, it says here. And work out how you construct a story, plots and so on. Non-writers especially welcome. And also Lunchtime Song Bites, a weekly lunchtime choir designed to get you in a good mood for the weekend. Discover the benefits that singing offers to both physical and mental health. Yeah, Nikki Mackay doing those creative writing courses. If you want to learn more about Nikki, listen back to episode 19 of the Planet Reigate podcast. And if you want to know any more about those Art for Wellbeing sessions, go to reigate-banstead.gov.uk/GHAC, and that's Growing Health, Art and Creativity. Yeah, that's what that stands for. More details are there. Tell them you heard about it on the Planet Reigate podcast when you rock up. Eco Earlswood has posted one of her fantastic posts. So Rachel, thank you for this. It's the different food trucks that are around Earlswood over the course of the next few weeks. So there's going to be, for example, Giaconelli's coffee van at East Surrey Hospital, Monday to Saturday. Sliced pizza is going to be outside the Plough Pub. I have one or two myself. Mondays between 4 and 8, and Earlswood Baptist Church, Fridays 4 till 8. There's Booney Greek-style street food at the Garibaldi Pub, Thursdays to Sundays, and also at the Plough Pub on Tuesday evenings between 5 and 8. Cookie Pod Coffees and Cookies at the Earlswood Farmers Market on Sunday the 26th of May, and Pizza Craft at the Old Chestnut Pub, RH1. I'm not aware of the Old Chestnut. I should be, shouldn't I? Let's check them out. Thursdays between 5 and 8. I'm also told that the late May Earlswood Car Boot Fair has been cancelled. Why has it been cancelled? Well, sadly, the Sea Scouts HQ on Hewley Lane there, that's on the right-hand side as you go down the hill into Redhill on the right-hand side, Brook Road round the back. Did I say I once lived on Brook Road? That was my very first flat, was on Brook Road. The Sea Scouts HQ, where they hold the event, has got a smashed-up coach permanently parked in the car park. Obviously, that's not safe to have members of the public around, is it? It compromises both safety and also space as well. They say refunds are going to be sent to everyone who's already booked a pitch. Huge apologies, but completely out of their control. But they are on a hunt for a new location. So if you know a new location for the Earlswood Car Boot Fair, then get in touch with Eco Earlswood, and Rachel over there would love to hear from you. But the Earlswood Farmers Market is still going to be happening Sunday the 26th, 10 till 2, right next door at the Marquis of Granby pub on Hewley Lane. It was my local when I lived on Brook Road, as you might imagine. Gemma says she's thinking of starting a litter picking group for Colesmead Road area. Would anyone be interested in joining in? So if you are interested in joining in, get in touch with me and I'll put her in touch with you.
Email hello@theplanetreigatepodcast.com.
And Horley Town Council says they've recently had their war memorial cleaned at the Horley Recreation Ground. Passed that the other day when I went to speak with Mike from the Horley Carnival. Had a little look at it because I had known in advance that they had a bit of a spruce up. So it's really good to see that. All in preparations, I'm sure, for their D-Day commemoration service, which is going to be happening later on in the year, which I talked about in last week's episode of the Planet Reigate podcast. And also, let me tell you this, some ducks have gone missing, finally, from Little Deeping Farm at Povey Cross. Now, if you don't know where that is, if you go down the Reigate Road, if you leave Reigate, you go down the main Reigate Road all the way, so you're going down to Hookwood and the big Tesco's, you pass the Black Horse pub on the left-hand side, and down to that roundabout, you would normally turn left to go to the Tesco Hookwood, but go straight over and go right at the end. Well, the farm is just down there. So what's gone missing? These ducks, 2 whistling ducks, which sound like this. And 3 call ducks, which sound like this. Sounds like Jimmy Carr, doesn't it? So if you know the whereabouts of those ducks, maybe you recognise them now. You've heard what they sound like. Little Deeping Farm at Povey Cross, and I'd like to hear from you.
The Planet Reigate podcast. Great stories from Reigate.
Now, I first spoke with Reigate Priory FC back in episode 9, so I thought we'd have an end-of-season catch-up to hear about their notable matches and where they sit at the end of the season, the start of the summer, with reserve team coach Jack and Dale, the first team manager.
We set out to achieve promotion to the highest level that we've ever been at, so step 6, and it will be the Southern Combination Division 1, we think. Nothing's been completely confirmed yet, but there's obviously been a lot of work behind the scenes in terms of admin, applying for promotion, but with that you've obviously got to get the facilities to do it, so that's been quite a lot of hard work, and thanks to our friends at Horley Town as well who have really helped us with that. We were leading the league for a long stage of the season, but there were a lot of teams with games to catch up on, to be honest, the league's still not sorted now. There's still some admin things to sort out. We think we're probably going to finish third, but there's going to be literally 3 points between us and first place, and there's such fine margins. There's so many different things you can look back at the course of the season where, had that gone a millimetre that side of the post, we would have been league champions and they would have been third, that sort of thing. So,
but then that's always going to happen, and it could happen the other way around as well.
100%. And there were games this season where we could look back on, and there was one right at the start of the season where we were 2-0 down, then we were 3-1 down, and we ended up coming back to win it 4-3. And there's one that we equalised in the last minute of the game. So it's swings and roundabouts. It happens both ways.
And those kind of matches are going to live in the memory, live in the history of the club for years, aren't they? Do you remember that time when?
Exactly that. And, last game of the season, we lost it with 2-0 up. One of our players got sent off. And naturally, the lads come into the change room, they're all gutted because at that stage we didn't know what that would have meant to hold out on the win. Obviously now we know that it could have potentially won the league. But naturally everyone was gutted. But our response to that was, look, you've still made history for this long-serving club, for the community, 154 years old, and you're the first team to get us to this level. Nobody else has ever done that. You've done that yourselves. So there's lots of those moments you can look back on that have made history for the club. If that's fed throughout the rest of the club, and it's the ethos that we've created to build a pipeline to keep progressing the teams throughout, all 5 teams, but obviously ultimately the top of that is the first team, and that's the progression that you see from there.
And Jack, Dale just mentioned about ethos. I mean, what I've really noticed since starting the podcast and following the various clubs across the area much more closely, the way all of the different clubs support each other. And another club is playing and you're going to say, yeah, come on Merstham, come on Redhill, whatever it happens to be. That great ethos in the whole area.
Football in Reigate specifically at the minute is flying. Obviously South Park, congratulations to those last week, won their Surrey FA Cup as well, and our friends at French's as well, they won their Surrey FA Cup as well. We're all quite a close-knit group. Everyone congratulates each other, wishes best of luck on social media, etc. So it's good to see and it's encouraging, and what it means as well is that link there, and Dale mentioned about Horley Town. We've got that close link with them at the minute in terms of the ground share, which will enable the first team to push up and play Step 6 next season for the first time in our history, which is great. But also what comes with that is the link between players as well. So for example, a couple of our young lads are now playing for their Horley under-23s, again won a cup final last week with them. One of the boys has been in and out of the first team there at Horley Town as well, so progressing even further from us as well, which is great.
And it gives them more opportunities to expand and to develop their own game, doesn't it?
It does. Obviously, we as a club, we're growing at a really, really great rate, which is for us sustainable, but also progressive and rapid. But there will be some players naturally that actually come in and develop either above that standard or already coming in at that standard and look for further opportunities to progress and play at a higher level, and those links enable us to be able to give them that opportunity.
So where do you go from now?
As a club, for me, the only way is kind of up. Like we said, we're talking about Step 6. So Step 6 for us will be is a big achievement, but it will be a big thing next season when it comes to actually into fruition, and we're at the games and we're at floodlit football in the midweek and stuff like that, and something the club's never seen. So it will be a real moment, that. And then the rest of the teams, so the reserves, obviously we won our league this season, so back-to-back promotions now into Mid Sussex Championship. A team have won their league, back-to-back promotions as well, so they should be going up into Div 3, potentially Div 2 of the Mid Sussex League. And then the Bs and the Cs have really, really been competitive this season. The Bs started off with some really young players which have now come into the reserve team, helped us win some trophies and have some success this season. And the Cs have gone from a brand new team, almost like an experiment team really, to a really competitive team, and I'm sure they'll kick on and look at silverware next year too.
It's fantastic. I always love coming here because you might be able to hear over to the left-hand side we've got croquet going on, and I turn round and there's some guys just getting ready with their for their cricket practice. Over the other side is Reigate Priory tennis, where I was a couple of weeks ago, and you'll be able to hear that interview in a couple of weeks' time on the podcast. There's so much going on here, isn't there? Well. Bowls over there as well, absolutely. Oh yes, I can see they are actually doing the bowls, aren't they? Absolutely. Moving up a tier then, Dale, that's going to add another seriousness to the whole situation, isn't it? I'm not saying that it was Amateurville before this, but it does concentrate the mind, doesn't it? You've got the floodlights, perhaps a little bit more money has got to be invested as well. It kind of concentrates people's attitudes, perhaps.
Exactly that, and there's a bit of a conflict as well, because obviously we've been predominantly grassroots football club. It's football for all, as many as we can cater for, which we haven't really had a problem until sort of the last year or so being able to cater for people, but facilities are holding us back. So we're now at a stage where it is, like you say, that sort of semi-professional level. It's non-league. So, you do get that different element where perhaps as a first-team manager I'm going to have to be a bit more ruthless. Obviously, another thing, a simple thing, we're going from roll-on, roll-off substitutions to not having that. So I can't probably make as many 30-minute substitutions as I've done before. So yeah, there's lots of other things to factor in now. We're going to have a bigger squad. There's a lot more games. Some people are going to miss out. And it's just a case of being able to factor that into our ethos as a club and make sure we can continue to have that whilst progressing at the same time. And I think the links we've got with other clubs really help. So, some of our young lads, for example, that might not be able to get minutes for us on a Saturday or a Tuesday night or whatever, that are doing really good things with Horley under 23s, for example. And Sam Luard, one of our young players who came all the way up through the youth system at Reigate Priory, came and won the league with us a couple of years ago in the championship that the reserves are now going into. We don't want to hold anyone back. Obviously we've got our own ambition to progress, but we know that we've got a great pipeline, and if someone's outgrowing us, we absolutely want to see them fly. So we want to hold on to that ethos whilst we go up, and I think that's going to be something that's quite rare, where a lot of those clubs are going to be like, we're all about first team, whereas we're still club first. But if we can keep pushing that first team, then great.
You've got to keep those people who are near the bottom or just coming into the club infused and inspired as well. You can't just concentrate on those top teams, can you?
Yeah, exactly that. And they can see that there's a pathway as well, which is really important. And everyone's got different motivations for being in football. Some of them are quite happy to just turn up, have a kick about, be with their mates, have a drink after, great. But some of them will come up and they'll look up to the first team and beyond, and they'll go, okay, I can see a clear path of progression here, and I know that as coaches here I can approach to ask them how I do that.
And if someone needs to leave so they can spread their wings, it's best to go with your blessing, isn't
100%.
it?
Yeah, exactly. And we actively did that we mentioned Sam before, so this is a year and a half or so ago. We actively did that with him and just sort of said, look, what is your ambition? What do you want to do? And how can we help you to get there? So we got him in touch with Martin, the first team manager over there. We got in touch with them, just sort of said, look, we've got this young lad who's interested. Did you want to have a look at him? So we started off with their 23s. They started having a look at him through there, and now we think he's probably going to be a bit more full-time with them next season. So he'll go with our blessing.
That's a good sign of a manager in sport as well as in business. Finally, let's come back. How do you keep this momentum going between the end of one season and the start of the other? People are, perhaps some of your football members are out there at the moment playing cricket, for example. They're being distracted with another sport. There are the summer holidays and so on. People maybe get a little bit lethargic.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because we've got a few boys that play cricket and often miss the first few games of pre-season as a result of that. Yeah, exactly. But really, it comes down to social events. We've got a very busy social calendar at the club, and as a group and a committee, we kind of put together social events to cover that. And so our end of season awards is 25th of May. So there's a few weeks gap between end of season to that. The boys can have a rest, switch their minds off, etc. End of season, and I think that really kickstarts the focus to next season then, because a lot of people will find motivation from the end of season awards where they've won something or they may have missed out on something, and gives them a bit of drive to maybe go for that for next season. That tends to be a bit of a party out here as well in the sun. We have live music. I think we've got a DJ this year as well, so it should be good. And then we have sort of events like we've got a foot golf tournament coming up. We do things like go-karting. We'll watch the Euros here, that type of thing. So it just keeps everybody together and keeps the community and the club feel alive.
It was great to go down there again, as you probably know, and as I mentioned there, such a fantastic location there, isn't it? It's a kind of jewel in the centre of the town there, down at the Priory. Well, all of those sports getting together around that same central area. Travel and weather and treasure together. A little bit later on in the show, and a natural sound from a place you know. Yeah, the travel news, we give you a heads up so you can avoid the hold-ups, particularly of interest. That whole area around Charlwood, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on in the show. We've got our weather prospects for the weekend ahead, and our treasure is this week's top bargain from Julie at the Children's Trust, Bell Street in Reigate. And before we go at the end of the show, a natural sound from a place you know, our 60-second soundscape, pounding the streets of Reigate with a local running group. And also, we've got our archive shows to tell you about as well. For example, we caught up with David from the Red Hill Corps of Drums and Band in episode 24, as he and his colleagues had a rehearsal, march and play. Find out what attracts so many people to join them, whether they can blow or bang an instrument or not. As I say, that's episode 24 of the Planet Reigate podcast. Find that episode in our page on your favourite podcast app.
The Belfry Shopping Centre, Red Hill. Ditch the click for hassle-free local shopping in a welcoming environment. See, touch, smell and try before you buy, and speak to real people who can advise you. The Belfry Shopping Centre, Red Hill. Woodlands Lettings, connecting landlords with tenants for over 20 years. If you have a property to let, pop into our office on Station Road by the Belfry main entrance for a coffee and a chat. Or call 01737 372 797.
This is the Planet Reigate podcast. I'm Peter Stewart. Thanks for the loan of your ears.
Planet Reigate Stars, thanking local heroes who are out of this world.
And this week, Charlotte says a big thank you to the folks that stopped to help me yesterday evening when I tried to avoid the 6-mile diversion of Russ Hill and ended up getting stuck in the mud. Everyone was really lovely and helpful, but a special massive thanks to Gary, who came to the rescue. I know no more than that. What was Charlotte doing? But she was trying to... Because I just stuck to the roads, but maybe... Oh, I wonder if... Because on those really small, narrow roads and a car comes towards you, you can kind of get stuck in a rut on the side of the road where the road disappears and there's just that soft verge. Maybe that was the situation. Charlotte, I'm glad you're okay. Gary, thanks very much indeed for what you did to help. And you get this week's Planet Reigate Sprinkle of Stardust on the Planet Reigate podcast. And it's been the 30th anniversary of 4 weddings and a funeral. 30 years. Can you believe it? 30 years. But did you know that the very first wedding was filmed right here in the Planet Reigate area? Last week we had a unique watch and walk at the St Michael's Church in Betchworth with the stories behind what you can actually see on the screen, like the local man with links to the TV show Grey's Anatomy, the man who owned most of Pebble Hill, the bequest from 1737 that's still being paid out today, the links to 5 kings and queens in that church, and the unique and historic wooden chest that in the film Hugh Grant simply walks by. I had no idea at all. And it's somewhere we've driven past dozens of times on the A25 over to Bletchingley, the Nutfield Woodland Burial Site. As I mentioned a little bit earlier on, they've got an open morning this coming Saturday. And if you'd like to hear my interview with Sarah, who is kind of runs it, is in charge of it as parish clerk, and also my walk through and watch from St Michael's Church in Betchworth, you make sure you go back and listen to last week's episode of the Planet Reigate podcast. Next week on the show, have you got an ache or pain? Maybe your GP is unable to help. Have you ever tried acupuncture? Well, we speak to a local expert next week who's running cut price sessions. And it was football this week on the show. Next week we pay a visit just across the area from Reigate Priory Football Club to Reigate Priory Lawn Tennis Club to hear more about what they've going on there. That is in next week's episode of the Planet Reigate podcast. This week in our show, we've got the Good Time Guide Part 2 coming up now.
The Good Time Guide. Things to do and places to go on the Planet Reigate podcast.
Thank you for the loan of your ears, and don't forget to subscribe to the show. And also, if you want to get in touch with me for enhanced media partnership status for your event, drop me a line, hello@theplanetregatepodcast.com. Essentially what that means is that you get more mentions, you get more coverage, you get more publicity, and you get more people to your event. Talk to me, hello@theplanetregatepodcast.com. Now, have you ever thought about doing exercise that's quick, easy, affordable, social, and offers so many benefits? Beverly says, what about Nordic walking? She says, join me for a beginner's course starting on Monday the 20th at 9:30, meeting at the Pheasant Car Park, RH3, for 5 weeks. Poles included, great fun, getting fit and improving well-being, and a coffee at the Pheasant afterwards. Bev 07903 356 092 for more information, or you can contact trynordic.co.uk. The East Surrey Morris men will be performing at the Plough in Lye on Monday night, around about 8 o'clock, 8 till 8:30, and I might see you there because I'm going to be recording an interview with them for a future episode. On Tuesday, members of RH Networking meet between 7 and 9 at Merstham Cricket Club. Speakers Natasha Knox from Pure NRG Nutrition and Priya Williams from St Julian Financial Planning. RH Networking is the group for face-to-face and online networking for business owners, directors, managers, anyone, in fact, that wants to meet other professional people. Go to rhnetworking.co.uk. Also on Wednesday, well, the Reigate and Redhill Music and Drama Festival, of which we are media partners, have their festival concert. It kind of pulls everything together. It's 6:30, St Matthew's Church in Redhill. Wednesday between 7 and 9:30, Brockham Arts Club are going to be at the Reverie for a paint and sip night. Yeah, you can join them for a relaxing evening at Buckland Park Lake. Ticket price of £29 includes park entrance, all materials required, and a grazing board of nibbles. Drinks can be bought from the bar. And if you want some more information on that, 07914 641181 or brockhamartsclub.co.uk. The Reigate Comedy Club returns on the 22nd of May with stars of Live at the Apollo. Tom Ward is going to be there. If you want some more information on that, at Old Reigations RFC, ReigateComedyClub.com. Greystone House Surgery posts that, did you know that May is National Walking Month? Why not join our health champions on one of their weekly well-being walks? Yeah, you meet at Greystone House Surgery, as you might expect. Wednesday, 11:30 in the morning, come rain or shine, and you stick around afterwards for some well-deserved tea and coffee at the surgery itself. They say walking isn't just good for your health, it's a fantastic way to stay connected with your community. Don't miss out, lace up those shoes and join us. From Wednesday to Thursday, and the Arts Society Reigate say they bring people together through a shared curiosity in the arts. Meetings begin on Thursday at 2 o'clock promptly at Reigate Park Church on Park Lane East. And this month they're going to be hearing about the Scottish colourists. Now, early in the 1900s, the group of artists, which later became known as the Scottish colourists, turned their attention to Paris. Influenced by post-impressionists, they combined strong, vibrant colours with the painterly traditions of Scottish art to produce innovative still-life paintings, landscapes and portraits. If you want some more information about that, the artsocietyreigate.org.uk. The Redhill Business Guild is meeting on Thursday at 5:30 at the Harlequin pop-up in the Belfry. The Guild meetings are open to business professionals who live or work in RH1 and consist of an hour's networking followed by an informative meeting and a chance to ask questions to the speakers. The meeting is free to attend. You just need to be able to book your tickets via redhillbusinessguild@gmail.com. So we've got various meetings, haven't we, for businesses across the area. We've got the Horley Business Guild, we've got the Redhill Business Guild, and also we've got RH Networking as well, all featured on the Planet Reigate podcast this week. Thursday moves on to Friday, and Merstham Community Facility Trust presents a community cook and share event live. On the 24th of May, as I say, cost-saving meals, cooking tips, recipe cards and tasters is at 6 p.m. at the Merstham Hub. You can book your spot, 01737 333461 if you want more information on that. And we always mention what's happening a week in advance, so that takes us to Saturday, May the 25th. And it's the Nocturne Supper Club event at 7 o'clock at Brockham Village Hall. And it's the theme this month is all about Schubert, the Schubatiad. Is that how you pronounce it? It's an event held to celebrate the music of Franz Schubert, 1797 to 1828. And apparently these kinds of things are really common across Europe, but less common here. Let me talk you through it. It's an event, of course, not only celebrate Schubert in music, but with a delicious three-course dinner curated to the life and times of the Austrian composer. And so it's going to be like bohemian food on this occasion, with wines selected from various wine regions of Europe as well. And there's going to be a live performance featuring well-known piano works by Franz Schubert as well. There's all sorts going on there. £50. That's pretty decent, isn't it? £50 a person. That includes a welcome drink, canapes, 3-course dinner, audio-visual and live entertainment, and curated wines as well, and a raffle. It's all happening Brockham Village Hall on Saturday the 25th, 7 to 11. They say dress code is dress for a dinner party. If you want some more information on that, get in touch with me. I'll pass them on to you.
Email hello@theplanetreigatepodcast.com.
And you heard about it on the Planet Reigate podcast. I'm Peter Stewart.
The Planet Reigate podcast. Great stories from Horley.
Celebrating its 12th year as an annual spectacle, the Horley Carnival is back Saturday, June the 15th. The festivities in full swing from noon through till 5 in the afternoon, and as always, admission is free. And this year they're taking a step back in time with their theme, which is going to be medieval Horley. I've been speaking with chairman of the organising committee, Mike George, at the place where it's all going to be happening, at Horley Rec. We've got the cafe over to our right-hand side with the clock, which seems to have been stuck on 9:10, incidentally, when it's
only right twice a day.
And yet it's about 4:10 in the afternoon. Over to our left-hand side, we've got the playground and the tennis courts and the skateboard park right ahead of us, together with the basketball court as well. Explain what it's going to be like in a few weeks' time.
The parade will arrive here about 1 o'clock, and they'll park in the area right in front of us. Behind that will be all the catering outlets, and the local pub is doing a Pimm's and beer outlet. In front of us, to the left, to the right, and down the right-hand side will be a whole range of stalls from various community groups, schools, charities, it's a whole mix. And the centre of the ground will be the main arena. This year, because of our theme, Medieval Horley, we've got a sort of reenactment group coming in, and they'll be taking over the entire arena.
There's not enough room to do jousting, is there?
No, there's not. It'll be dismounted combat. Beyond that will be their medieval village, and they'll do demonstrations of medieval cooking, that sort of thing, and also be medieval dancing displays as well. And that whole area across that behind the Mugger and the skate park will be the fun fair. For us, it'll be here from Friday through to Sunday. Then moving around to your left is what we call the Jubilee Gardens. That's behind that hedgerow there. Yeah. Punch and Judy, Tom's Talking Reptiles, and Huxley's Birds of Prey.
That's a nice little area there, isn't it? Because it's part of the same kind of ground, the same recreation ground.
Yes.
But it's a little bit cut off, it's a little bit more kind of private and so on, with those low hedges.
That's right, so the kids want to sit down in front, there's not people trying to walk past them, they can all gather in front. And for the reptiles and the birds, of course, it's a much quieter area. Then to your left in the tennis courts,
it goes on.
There won't be tennis courts on that Saturday, because that's where the archery display will be taking place. They have the kit where members of the public can come in and try their luck as well at bows and arrows. By the skate park, Team Rubicon are here every year, and they give free lessons to kids on roller skates, boards, anything they want. And they supply all the equipment and the safety things as well for those kids who haven't got it. Yeah, we just about fill the ground up, really.
It sounds as though you've done this before. It sounds as though it's going to be a really well-oiled machine.
The first one we did was in 2002 for the Jubilee that year. We then had a 10-year break and resumed it in 2012. And everybody said, it's so great, you've got to do it every year. Like the old carnivals used to be back in the 70s and 80s. If you do it every year, it becomes easier because you're in the flow all the time. Yeah.
And tell me about the carnival aspect. You say there's going to be a parade, there's going to be floats and that kind of thing. Where does all that start? What is that route?
That starts in the Victoria Road car park in the centre of town, and it turns right into Massett's Road, then does a left into Russell's Crescent, which brings it right round to Waitrose, and then they then go through the whole town centre, Victoria Road, down to the traffic lights here, along Brighton Road and into here.
And you mentioned there's a theme this year. You said it was medieval. So what kind of thing are you expecting?
And there's a competition for the best themed stall, and also there's prizes as well for the floats.
So I'm kind of expecting themes of lords and ladies. The ladies with those conical tall hats with the long kind of trail from them. Boys and men dressed up as knights and things like that, yeah?
Well, we're hoping so. We're trying to get one a different theme every year. The main thing is, though, it is something that the schools and the kids can get involved with. It's something they can do.
I'm thinking of St George, I'm thinking of King Arthur and Guinevere, things like that, Knights of the Round Table.
That's it.
And I'm tempted to say, why do you do it? Obviously, it's to add entertainment and so on for people in Horley. But also, I guess you're raising money, yeah?
We don't raise any money at all, because it's free to enter, so there's no ticket price. Anything that's left over, we reinvest in the following year. We have some very generous sponsors. Gatwick Airport, one of our county councillors from his Surrey fund, been a very generous supporter of this year's Carnival. Local businesses who were encouraged to want to get involved in sponsorship, and it's also to allow the local groups to publicise their group, because we are a small town with a big population, and Horley has a history of having community events, more than the rest of the borough put together, which we always pride ourselves on. So we have the Carnival, we have the St George's Day Fair, we have the Christmas Fair, we have classic car shows, that sort of thing. So there's a lot going on, and of course we have a lot of new residents. So it's advertising them what they move to this town. This is what happens here.
Mike, tell us again when it's on, where people can get more information.
Right, it's Saturday, the 15th of June. Starts at 12, finishes at 5. The parade sets off in the town centre at 12:30 and arrives in the A23 Brighton Road Recreation Ground between 1 and 1:15. There's websites, we have Facebook, we have Instagram. It's widely publicised as possible. There'll be posters going up shortly. There will be banners going up around the town in various locations to maximise the publicity and make sure everybody knows what's going on. And welcome to come along.
Now, the Planet Reigate area travel news. We give you the heads up so you can avoid the hold-ups, and we've got details of some roadworks which are happening over the next few weeks. Cormongers Lane in Red Hill, that goes through until the 19th, and the road is going to be closed for that. Dover's Green Road, Cockshot Hill, Price's Lane, all the works going on there every which way until October. Although I went through there the other day, I couldn't see much, so maybe I was not keeping my eyes... No, I was keeping my eyes open because I was driving. Red Hill, Earlsbrook Road through until December, Salford's West Avenue till October. Now, Charlwood, Russ Hill Road is closed for essential gas repairs, don't I know it, through until June the 28th. As someone said on social this week, living in Charlwood is currently like being under siege. Russ Hill cut off by full road closures, Ifield Road is closed, temporary lights by the parish hall, and 6 days of delays on Stan Hill. You really couldn't make it up. I feel your pain. I was getting quite frustrated, I really was, when all that was happening. South East Water are doing some roadworks in various places for renewing some water mains. Common Road in Red Hill through to the 25th. Earlsbrook Road through till the end of year on and off, and Common Road in Red Hill through until... Oh, I've mentioned that already, haven't I? I don't think they're digging it up twice. And also, let me tell you about the cheapest local petrol in the area at time of recording, 143.9 at Tesco's in Hookwood in Horley. There we are. So that's the travel news, together with the weather for the Planet Reigate area. I nearly said for the heart of the south then. If you're a certain age, you'll get that reference. Should I say that in future? Should I say the heart of the south? Here we go. Cloudy start Saturday morning. Early in the afternoon, a few scattered and heavy showers will start to develop, mostly with the risk of thunder as well. Sunday, partly cloudy skies in the morning, but widely sunny conditions through the afternoon and for the rest of the day as well. Largely sunny and settled through Monday, and temperatures remaining slightly above average. And that's your Planet Reigate weather across the heart of the south.
Hidden treasure on the Planet Reigate podcast.
This week's podcast item is actually hand-decorated ceramics. Now there's two pieces. We have a teapot and we have a milk jug. Now they are from Emma Bridgewater. By doing a little bit of research, it suggests vintage 2001. I would have said vintage predates that by some country mile. So it's a cream teapot, lovely glaze, and it has a single olive branch design on either side. It has a perfect lid with a bobble on the top, so that's very pleasing to take on and off. And this teapot has been used but is very clean, no chips. The cream jug or milk jug is the same with Made in England, the Bridgewater stamp underneath, and the little hand decorated symbol. So maybe produced a slightly different time, but it is of exactly the same hand painted design. So the olive branch And it has initials on this one of JC in blue lettering. So this olive branch design then, so we have the green background. I have seen it described as fig and olive branch on separate postings of people reselling on Etsy. So these originate from a gift aid donor. Incredible generosity from everybody that donates to support our shops in raising money for children with brain injury. But these are from a gift aid donor that signed up, so every £1 raised, we get an extra 25p in the pound from HMRC by reclaiming the tax that they've already paid on their original purchase. So we are asking £50 for this 2-piece ceramic set. So hurry along to the Children's Trust shop at Bell Street, Reigate, and find these items ready for purchase from Saturday morning.
Thanks, Julie. I could do with a cuppa right now after hearing that.
This is the Planet Reigate podcast.
And that was episode 36 of the Planet Reigate podcast. In episode 37 next week, have you got a nagging problem that the NHS just can't find an answer for? Have you considered acupuncture? Next week we'll hear what it's all about from a local acupuncturist and how it can be cheaper than you may think. There's something so summery, isn't there, of the gentle sound of a tennis match, but of course you can play it all year round on many local courts, like those at Reigate Priory Lawn Tennis Club, who I caught up with recently, and you'll be able to hear my chat next week on the Planet Reigate podcast. That and a whole host of other features and stories from places you love and people you know. But before we go this week...
The 60-second soundscape. Local natural sounds, uninterrupted.
Well, we heard from Emma of Reigate Ladies Joggers in episode 14 of the show. This week, hear from her and her colleagues, members, friends, as they set off to run the mean streets of Reigate for another evening session of Reigate Ladies Joggers.
How are you all? Okay?
Are we ready yet?
Nearly. I know Julia last minute. Clearly's not. How is everybody?
Good. We're all good.
Yes, okay. Happy weekend. All back to normal, back to school, back to everything.
Back in.
Good. Everyone feeling fit and healthy?
Yes.
Okay, jackets off. All good? Right. Watches at the ready. Torches at the ready. We're going up, but only halfway up.
Tag on. Only halfway. Halfway of what?
Halfway, yes. Halfway wide.
Going up or down?
Halfway. All right, perfect. Good. Have you got everyone? Yeah. Nearly. All right, let's go. Bye, Peter. See you soon. Bye. Bye. Take care. Bye. Okay, we're following them. No, not up the hill. Whoop, whoop. Yeah. Are we going? No, up. The only way is up. Baby. We're ready. We're only at the start.
The Planet Reigate podcast was produced and presented by Peter Stewart.